everybody? This is Marty. This is Pundit's Playbook, Season 2, Episode 3, and we're going to hit the AFC and NFC West. So we're going to start with the fourth place team from last year, the Chargers. They went 5-12. However, this year, they are second best, plus 352 win this division. So Vegas is liking them, projected at 8.5 wins. So let's talk about what their season is going to look like. So I think they're going to run the ball a lot this year. So they have Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. They're back coaching together. The last time they coached together was in San Fran from 2011 to 2014. And during that time, they ranked 30th in dropback rate, and they were 31st in passing plays per game. So they love to run the ball, and this year they're going to run the ball a lot. They upgraded their running back room. They added J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Their O-line is ranked 7th this year, 7th best. They used the 5th overall pick on an O-lineman, so they really want to run the ball. And they're projected to face the 6th easiest schedule of run defenses. They're also projected to face the 2nd easiest overall schedule. So this season I'm expecting a lot of running. Justin Herbert, he needs to stay healthy. I think he's really good, but he hasn't been healthy all the time. His receivers hasn't been healthy, but I think this offense can really run the ball a lot, and they might be able to catch on fire this season. Now let's talk about the negatives. Horrible receiving core. They lost Allen, they lost Mike Williams. Best receiver right now is a rookie, Ladd McConkey. They have Josh Palmer, who's been all right or so. Quentin Johnson hasn't been anything. Their defense, it lacks a lot of talent, and they haven't been good the past few years, so I'm a little worried there. The biggest thing with this team is their rest. So their net rest edge is 27th best in the league. They have an early bye, week 5 bye, which is horrible. And from week 8, their rest edge is negative 17 days. So a lot of teams are getting a lot more rest towards the end of the season when players are more injured. So I don't really like that. But overall, this Chargers team, if they can establish the run, they might be able to go somewhere. So now let's move to the Broncos. They came in 3rd last year. They went 8-9. This year you can get them at plus 2,000 to win the division, which is the worst. They're projected at 5.5 wins, so Vegas is not very high on them. But now let's talk about the negatives. So last year, they went 8-1 if they won the turnover battle. If they lost the turnover battle, they went 0-8. I don't like this because turnover luck doesn't translate year over year, so that's not looking good for them. They're projected to play the 2nd toughest schedule of past defenses. Projected to face the 8th hardest overall schedule, so scheduling didn't do them any favors, and they're facing a lot of good teams. Their defense last year was pretty bad. They ranked 31st in efficiency. Usually Denver has a pretty good defense, but not last year. And then a big one, their dead cap this year. They have a lot of dead cap because of Russell Wilson. Dead cap is at $67.6 million with $39 million going to Wilson. So they're paying a lot of players that aren't on their team this year. But now let's move into the positives. So I really couldn't find too many. Their defense is projected to play the 4th easiest schedule of offenses. So that's okay there. So that can help out their defense a lot. They have a new QB. They drafted Bo Nix. Maybe he'll be an upgrade over Wilson. Last year, Wilson, all he did was just dump the ball off pretty much. So hopefully they can spread the ball down the field with this kid. And then Javonte Williams. He's a year removed from his ACL tear. Maybe he'll be more explosive for this team. But other than that, there's really not too much hope for this team. So I understand why they're plus 2,000. So now let's go into the Raiders. So the Raiders had a pretty decent season last year. They went 8-9. Okay, this year you can get them at plus 900 to win this division, and they're projected at 6.5 wins. So let's talk about the negatives first. So last year they got very, very lucky, and they faced 7 backup quarterbacks, which is honestly insane. They went 5-1 if they won the turnover battle, and they went 3-8 if they didn't. So that's, again, similar to the Broncos. That doesn't translate year-over-year turnover luck, so that's a little, I don't really like that there. And then this is a big one here. So 24% of their plays came on 3rd down last year, the 3rd highest in the league. Why is this bad? Good teams like to avoid 3rd downs. Okay, you can't rely on 3rd down luck year over year. Let's look at the Carolina. Carolina went 2-15, and they were the 32nd highest plays on 3rd down. So they had the most plays on 3rd down. The Giants were up there too, and they went 6-11. So those two teams that played a lot of that had a lot of plays on 3rd down had horrible records. And Vegas was there, but Vegas went 8-9. So they just got pretty much lucky on 3rd downs there, which I don't like. And then to top off the negatives, they have the 9th hardest schedule this season, so they're going to be facing a lot of tough opponents. But now for the positives. Similar to the Denver, I really couldn't find too many. I mean, their coach, Antonio Pierce, players loved to play for this guy last year. Maybe you can motivate them again and they can play hard as well. Another one I found, their punter. Their punter was straight amazing, A.J. Cole. He landed 50% of his punts behind the 20-yard line, which is the 2nd best. So the Raiders had great field position. And then the last one I really have is Wilkins and Crosby on defense. They can cause a lot of havoc. But overall, I'm not really high on this team and understand why they're plus 900 as well. And then we got the Chiefs, Super Bowl champs from last year, and I think they could repeat this year. They won 11-6 last year, projected at 11.5 wins, and you can get them at huge minus 230. I think that might be the biggest odds to win a division this year, and I understand why. So we're going to talk about the negatives with this team and what they did wrong last year. So last year, their early down offense was horrible. They were negative 0.05 EPA, which would be 19th best. And on early downs, they only scored 120 points on early downs, which would be 27th best in the league, which is kind of surprising, seeing that Pat Mahomes is probably the best quarterback in the league. Why did this happen? Why did they struggle so bad on early downs? Well, it's because they couldn't throw the ball downfield. They didn't have many good receivers. Rashid Rice didn't come on until towards the end of the season. They didn't really have many good pieces. So what did the Chiefs do? They addressed that. They added some receivers. They added Marquise Brown, and they drafted Xavier Worthy. So I love how they addressed that. They went 2-4 when their opponents held a lead of 7 points or more. Again, showing that they could not throw the ball downfield, and the Chiefs addressed that. Love it. So now let's move into the positives. They play 5 games this year with a rest advantage and only 2 with a disadvantage. They have the 8th best schedule for net rest advantage. Their O-line is 4th best in the league, and their D-line is 10th best. And then another cool stat I found. So last season, they were minus 10 in turnover margin and minus 20 in the penalty margin. They are the only team since 2000 to make the playoffs with a minus 10 turnover margin and a minus 20 penalty margin. So if they can address those, they'll be so much better this season, okay? And now we're going to do the recap for the AFC West and my predictions. So coming in fourth, I'm going to have the Raiders. And then third, I'm going to do Denver. I'm not high on either of these teams. They're going to finish third or fourth. Don't really have much to say. In third, we're obviously going to do the Chargers. They're much better than I think Denver and the Raiders. Definitely a step behind the Chiefs. Maybe they could have a good season. Maybe they can sneak into the playoffs. And then last but not least, we got Kansas City. They're just a lead everywhere. They got better. They went at their weaknesses, so I'm expecting a long playoff push and probably a Super Bowl, another again. But now we're going to go into the NFC West, and we're going to start with fourth place Cardinals. Okay, they went 4-13. This year you can get them at plus 1,300 to win this division, and they're projected at 7.5 wins. So let's talk about some positives. They added pieces on defense through free agency and the draft. They were horrible on defense, and I'm expecting them to be horrible again, but maybe just a little less horrible. They drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey Benson. They had McBride, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, led by Kyle Murray. So I think this offense is going to be really good. It's just the defense is what I'm worried about. So for negatives, they're projected to face the number 1 most difficult schedule of offenses. Their first 10 games are extremely hard, so I expect them to be not really good for the first 10 games. They no longer have Murray on a cheap contract, okay? His cap hit will be $49.1 million this year. Maybe that's a reason why they couldn't spend on defense. Now let's talk about Murray and where he struggles. So he was horrible throwing the ball beyond 10 yards last season. He ranked number 44 in EPA, 39 in yards per average, 42 in success rate, and number 40 in passer rating. So he was horrible throwing the ball down the field. Maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. can help this out, but that's a big thing they need to address this year. And then they're always trailing. They were 21st in first quarter scoring and 27 in halftime leads, okay? They need to get this offense going early so they don't have to always play catch-up. And then the 2 last negatives I have, their O-line is ranked 26th and their D-line is the worst in the league at 32nd. So I'm not really too high on this team, but I think this offense could do something. It's just the defense is going to be very bad again, I think. So now let's move into the Seattle Seahawks. So the Seahawks, they came in third last year. They went 9-8. You can get them at plus 700 to win this division, and they're projected at 7.5 wins. So a fun fact about this team, in the last 9 years, they are 4-4-1 at exceeding their win total. They've been average throughout the past 9 years and just always going to what Vegas projects them to win. Let's start with positives. They have a whole new coaching staff. The new head coach, Mike McDonald, he wants to increase the QB pressure on defense and confuse opposing offenses. He comes from being the DC of the Ravens, who have been really good the past few years, so hopefully he can increase this defense. And then they have some great receivers on this team. They got DK, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Najigma. So I think they can really, if they can get the ball downfield more to them, I think they can really increase their offensive output this year. But now let's move into the negatives. So they didn't use enough play action last year. Geno Smith was really good in play action. He was actually the number 1 ranked quarterback in efficiency on play action, but they didn't use it enough. With play action, they were positive 0.35 EPA expected points added, added. When they did not use play action, they were only positive 0.07 EPA. Much better on play action, but they didn't call it that much. So hopefully this new coaching staff understands that and gets Geno more play action plays. Their O-line this year is what I'm really worried about. They're ranked 29th in the league, very bad. Geno last year was sacked on 15% of his of every pressure, which is the 4th highest in the league. This O-line was very bad for him. And their O-line is the cheapest in the league. So this O-line really needs to step up and really help Geno if they want to go anywhere. But now let's move into the Rams. So last year the Rams came in second. They went 10-7. This year you can get them at the second best odds plus 330 to win this division. And they are projected at 8.5 wins. So let's talk about the positives. Sean McVay, I think he's a pretty good coach. So last year they went 3-6 into their bye last season. Then they made some changes on offense, and then they went 7-1 to end the season and make the playoffs. Very great. I love when coaches can make changes mid-season and help their team out. They went to more play action and more pre-snap motion. I love that. This year they drafted 5 defenders in the draft to add to their defense. That was something very big for them. And then another cool stat I found. So McVay, what does he struggle with throughout his career? Game management. He's bad at game management. So what did the Rams do this season? They hired a game management coordinator to help him out and make decisions on 3rd and 4th down easier for him. So I think that's kind of cool. But now let's move into the negatives for this team, which there weren't too many, so I kind of like this team. They were projected to face the 3rd toughest schedule of defenses this year. They lost Aaron Donald. He was huge for them, been a great player throughout his career, so that's going to be big to try to replace him. And they also have the least expensive defense in the league that may deal with Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp on offense, but they don't play they're not paying players on defense. They're not getting many star talented players there. And then another thing is, can Stafford and Kupp, can they stay healthy this year? If they do, I kind of like this team, but if they get injured or banged up, it's not looking great for this team. So now let's move into the 49ers. 49ers came in first last year. They went 12-5. They had a great season. You can get them at minus 190, which is very steep, but I understand why. They're projected at 11.5 wins, so let's talk about the positives. So they had the best offense last year, and they brought everybody back. I'm assuming Ayuk stays, because why would they want to trade him? He's a great receiver. He was number 3 in success rate last year, and he's elite. So I think San Fran, if they trade him, it's going to be just very dumb on them, because they can definitely win the Super Bowl this year. Kyle Shanahan, I think he's a good coach, and he knows how to get the best out of his players. I think he really elevated Brock Purdy last year, and this offense is going to be great again. And then their D-line. Their D-line is ranked 3rd this year, so they have a great D-line right there. But now let's move into the negatives. So the biggest one that I found is their net rest edge is worse again this year. They were worse last year, and they're 32nd this year as well. They're minus 21 days of rest, so teams are getting much more rest than they are. That's the 6th worst since 1990, kind of insane. They play 8 games this year with a rest disadvantage, and they play 3 short week road games. I don't like those because teams lose those games a lot, especially when they're late in the season. They also had a lot of turnover on the defensive sides, but they added pieces, so can those pieces cover what the defense did last year? I don't know, but that's another kind of negative to have. And then they're projected to play the 4th toughest schedule of offenses this year. But overall, I like this team. I think they have a lot of talent, and I think they can go far. So now to do the recap. So I'm sorry, but this is going to be a boring recap. Coming in 4th, I have Arizona. I love the offense, but do not trust the defense there. 3rd, I have Seattle. I love how they have new coaching, but that O-line kind of scares me, and kind of if Geno gets hurt, it's kind of down from there. Coming in 2nd, I have the Rams. Just a lot of talent on this team, good coaching, so I think they could do something again. And then coming in 1st, I have San Fran. So they're minus 190, and rightfully so. Great offense, great coaching. Definitely see them going back to the Super Bowl. But yeah, that's all I have for the AFC and NFC West. Big shout out to ETR and Warren Sharp for all the information I get. And remember, money never sleeps.